Yes. Yes. Are you good? Yes. Okay. Madam Chair, we're ready whenever you're ready.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is the Sandy City Council meeting of Tuesday, April 14th, 2026. We'll start our meeting with a prayer. Do I have a volunteer for a prayer? Should we how about Marcy? Would you do it for us this week? Thanks.
Our dear Father in heaven, as we gather this evening, we are so grateful for the opportunity to serve. We are grateful for this city, grateful for all of those who live and serve and elevate and lift. We are blessed to be able to grow from the gifts that others offer to this community. We pray that as we deliberate on various items this evening, that thy Spirit will be with us, that we will remember that those that we serve are looking to us to make the best decisions possible. We ask that thy guiding hand will direct us as we serve. Help us to listen and learn from our residents as well as one another, as well as the leaders across our city. Bless our efforts tonight that we might reflect the light of Christ in all that we do. And we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, and we will now rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. And introductions are up next. Mr. Fratto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Dustin Fratto. I'm with the City Council office. There are a couple other council staff members in the back of the room, Justin Sorensen and Liz Terrio.
Hi, my name is Tracy. I'm counsel for the council.
Chris Edwards with the council office.
Chris Nickel, District 3.
Marcy Hausman, District 4.
Brooke Christensen, District 1.
Cindy Sharkey, at large.
Allison Stroud, District 2.
Aaron DeKaiser, at large.
Mayor Monica Zoltansky.
Shane Pace, City Administrator.
Lynn Pace, City Attorney.
And Councilmember D'Souza is excused this evening. So we have on our agenda tonight 3 information items, 4 public hearing items, 2 consent items, and an RDA meeting on our agenda this evening. We have general citizen comment at 6 p.m., and we take individual comment on voting items as they occur on the agenda. Before we move into the agenda, I happened to notice today that this is hard. Today is National Be Kind to Lawyers Day. This had to happen on a Tuesday, right? We will, all I can say is we will try our best, you guys. We'll try.
Thank you. We appreciate the deep flattery.
All right, moving right into the agenda. The first item on our agenda is the council interviewing a candidate for the Architectural Review Committee. And Ms. Nickel, would you like to make an introduction on this one?
Sure. Come on up, Chad. So I met Chad at a dinner party with another neighbor. We hadn't met before, and so he lives a couple streets up from me, and we went to a couple dinner parties, and on the third time we met or something, he said, well, I'm an architect. And I said, hey, great, would you like to do something with the city? And he was super excited about the Architectural Review Committee. He's actually at a firm, it's Babcock and Design, and they do a lot of stuff in Sandy. He's talked with a lot of stakeholders. Let me stick to my script. He has worked for Sandy's largest stakeholders in the past and understands the responsibility that comes with this role. I think that's it.
What she said.
All right, Chad. Well, the way this works is that if you could maybe give us just a kind of an overview of your experience and why you are interested in serving on this committee, and then...
Sure. Madam Chair, I forgot to add something.
Okay, go ahead.
That James has actually met with him and may have a few comments, or he gave me the thumbs up. Okay.
Do you want to kick us off? Yeah,
sure.
Go ahead.
So I've been a licensed architect in Utah since 2016. I graduated from the University of Utah 2013, 2012. It all blurs together. I've been at Babcock Design for 13 years as of last February. I'm currently a senior associate with the firm with potential of becoming a partner at the end of this year. Over the course of my career, a lot of it was through internships and my time there, but then after licensure, worked a lot on a lot of public office down the I-15 corridor, a lot of areas in Silicon Slopes. COVID happened and some things changed, and office was not such a hot commodity for architectural professions anymore for good reasons. And so I started looking into different professions. Babcock my firm has a deep background in public work, and so I kind of found a niche that I really like to get into. Started working with a lot of police, fire, city councils, city administration to work on different types of buildings. We've done public safety, fire station, police stations. Currently working on a large correctional facility down in southern Utah. Worked a little bit with Chief McConaughey a while back on some early concept designs for Station 31. Just really enjoy working on community-driven developments. I can see that the profit motives and the insight from this side of things is a lot different than the private side, and I much appreciate it. So it's been really rewarding and great to work with everybody that I've got to meet. So looking forward to doing more.
All right. Thank you. Did we want to go to James? Were you looking for that? Or? Yeah, that'd be great.
I appreciated the chance to get to know Chad. We obviously know his company, Babcock, extremely well. They're handling all of the architecture for SEG around the mall and have worked the last few years with them. Obviously, if you have probably Chad's resume in front of you, I look at that and think we'd be very lucky to have him on our committee. We need architecture experience on the committee, people who have done it and who know Sandy City and know what we're striving for in Sandy City and the excellence that we're striving for. And Chad has great experience with Babcock, and he does know that this is a committee that is pretty diverse and working with other people too on the committee. It's just not one person who makes decisions, and so I think he'll work well with everyone, and I think we're just super excited to have an architect and willing to help us.
And I think this will actually be the first council appointment, so it's pretty cool for us.
Yeah. Okay, council, questions or comments? Ms. Hausman, go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I love what you bring from all of your worlds and intersecting into this, so thank you for your willingness.
Sure.
I really have just kind of one question, because your experience and resume all speak for itself, but my wondering is, how do you, in this role specifically, how do you, or even in your other work, so wherever, but what does it look like for you to help municipal government strike that balance of creativity, design, all of those things that move us forward and keep us where we would like to be as we are considering design and cost, protecting taxpayers, all of that. I'm sure that is a complicated answer, but I'd love to hear your approach.
There's a lot of facets in my profession, and I always think that there's like the sustainable side, the design side, the project management side, the client side, the business development side, and so much of getting interaction with the public through council, through commissioners, et cetera, has shown me that there is such a wide diverseness on your side as well. And so it's really important to understand the parameters where you guys are coming at, because aesthetics are great in one thing, but without function, it's nothing. Without meeting a budget, it's nothing. We have to be really careful and tread carefully with when we're designing for public dollars, essentially.
Yes.
And so we try to be cognizant of that and be really respectful, knowing that we're trying to check a lot of boxes. As it comes to design, realistically, in my mind, with this and with every design problem, it's just a series of problem solving. And so the more information we can get out, and there's some things that can bend, and there's some things that are really strict, but knowing what the criteria is and how far we can push, how far we can make concessions, where we could put categories into wants versus needs is a huge deal. And that's kind of how I treat my clients as well. So it's very transparent, and that's the easiest way to go about it in my mind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. That's all I had.
Ms. Stroud.
So the Architectural Review Committee, they're often looking at plans that other companies are bringing in, down here kind of in our Cairns area, and possibly, I guess, some, from your company. How will you handle that if it doesn't meet our Cairns design standards, and if it is your company that's bringing it forward, a design forward?
So probably two questions there. If it was Babcock's projects, I might recuse myself from those specifically. If need be, we can work with the committee and determine what's the best path is. I'm happy to do that. I have the best opinion when it's not my work that I'm criticizing. So that's really easy. No, when I was talking to James earlier in our pre-interview, I think you have to, similar to like the code book, you'll hear everyone say the phrase, the way I interpret the code, blank. And there's a lot of interpretation that goes with the code. And for better or worse, there's probably a lot of interpretation that comes with the Cairns District and the different guidelines that go along with it. So I think you have to have a little bit of levelness of logic and reasonability. But there's that same thing. There's the wants, the needs, the must-haves, the can't change, the can change. So ultimately trying to come with a level head to understand that there's some things that we probably are going to get pushed up against that we can have conversations with and push back. There's some things that are an absolute no. But I think it's a variety of what makes the most sense from a lot of reasons, aesthetically, budgetary, function, etc.
Oh, I was wondering on those two questions. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm getting nervous for the head councilwoman here.
I'm ready to go.
Okay.
So I think this is a very, very important committee. This isn't a decision-making committee, it's a recommending committee, but it's a recommending committee for development of our downtown Cairns district. It's the area of the city that has yet to be developed to our vision, to our goals. And I think we have one chance to get this right. And so I think that this committee is very, very, very important. I've served on the committee before. I've seen architects struggle to tell other architects what they should do. I have seen architects soften to an argument of cost. So we've set our Cairns design standards, right? And we've laid out a game plan of what we want. And I have seen plans come across that personally I didn't think, or as I observed the committee, that the committee didn't think was compliant with the design standards, with the goals, with the vision. But maybe soften, as I said, to an argument of cost. If I do that, it'll cost too much, or the developer won't, or maybe the architect is willing to make some changes, but the builder isn't, because it's just, there's a cost element, right? We do all understand too. This is difficult. It's difficult to get to. I see you use the word balance again and again, and every time you used it, I circled it, because I do think it's an important balance. We want our downtown district to be distinctive. We want it to be Sandy. We want it to be something different than downtown Salt Lake City or downtown South Jordan or downtown Draper. I want someone driving up the I-15 to look over to their right and say, we're in Sandy now. I want it to be something different and distinctive. And I value architects being on this committee. I think that interpretation of what we want, I have seen on the fly different agreements being made about, well, this doesn't make sense. How about if we do it this way? I really, really think it's a very important committee. And so you would be in a position of making a decision about whether other architects have met the conditions, the definitions that have been spelled out in the Cairns design standards. Do you feel comfortable with that?
That's my entire background. That's all through school. The shortest answer is there's rarely, probably never, one solution to a problem. And so if there's an outline that we feel collectively is not being met, let's talk about it and talk about reasons why. I'd like to hear why they think they don't want to do what our recommendation is, and if there is, okay, there's probably another solution. Something that can meet everyone's needs and demands, and let that be Sandy, right? So we critique in the office, we critique internally, we critique with our consultants. Like, it's rarely, this is the decision that starts at the beginning and gets through the end. It's usually a collaborative process where we determine what the best idea wins. And it's, like I said, it's rarely, a lot of them could work, but there's ultimately going to be one that works for most people. And that could hit on, again, budget, design, aesthetics, et cetera, et cetera.
I love the way architects talk. It's kind of like poets. It's like poetry. Yeah. And that's kind of what I would like to see applied. It's not completely raw ground here in the Cairns, but there's a lot of it left, and I think there's still a very obvious opportunity for placemaking. And so it's not just approving one building, it's considering how that building works with everything else and gets us to this vision, this goal of the downtown district. So anyway, I really like the experience that you bring. I think it's important experience to add to the Architectural Review Committee. I think, if you haven't already read the Cairns Design Standards, I'm sure that you will, because that's how you'll be measuring these projects that come your way. But some of them are the biggest projects we'll ever see in Sandy, right? Very, very important. And so that's why I think it's important. And I like your experience. It's encouraging to me. I think we need this kind of experience on this committee, and I'll look forward to supporting your appointment to this committee.
Thank you.
If I may,
Yeah.
On one note, I think that Chad will bring a new breadth of information. He's the youngest member on the committee, as far as I know, and so I think, and he'll get along great with the other architects. I have no doubt about that. I was telling him a couple, and he actually knows a couple of them. So anyway, looking forward to it. You want to tell him the process, or do you want me to?
You can.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is just the interview. Next week, we'll actually vote on it. It'll probably be on a consent calendar, and then you're officially on, and James will be the one that sends out meeting reminders and that type of thing.
Okay.
So super easy. I think you did great, and you're awesome.
All right.
Yep.
Like you had any doubt.
Well, she gave me some.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Thank you, everybody, so much. Appreciate
Thank
your time.
you.
Have a good night.
Appreciate you. Okay. All right. Next item on our agenda is the Central Wasatch Commission providing the council their annual review. And that is Lindsay Nielsen. And I see you online tonight. Lindsay, thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Council. Thank you so much for making the time on tonight's agenda and for your attention. Since I am online tonight, I think I can just really easily share the slides instead of Dustin and team driving the slides. So if you don't mind, I will set that up right now. Okay. Okay, so yes, as is stated on your council meeting agenda, this is our annual presentation to you, Sandy City Council, a member jurisdiction of the Central Wasatch, actually a founding jurisdictional member of the Central Wasatch Commission. So we are here, I'm here tonight to have some FaceTime, to answer any questions, and to tell you about all the things we've done in the past year since the last time I came to talk to you and everyone on the dais there tonight. So in case anyone needs a refresher about what the Central Wasatch Commission is, the CWC grew out of the Mountain Accord process. That Mountain Accord charter was signed in 2015, and the CWC was created and staffed up in 2018. Since then, the CWC has served as the main convener of all of the various and diverse stakeholders along the Wasatch Front and the Wasatch Back, with the express goal of focusing on the long-term protection of the watershed, the land, and the ecosystems that we see in the Central Wasatch Mountain Range. In addition to the protection of the environmental aspects of these mountains, the CWC is focused on balancing the other three predominant systems that we see working in the Central Wasatch Mountains. And that is, of course, transportation, so how people are getting to the mountains and then getting around the mountains once they get there to recreate. Of course, recreation, so I don't have to tell you folks on the dais that we have world-renowned recreational opportunities here just in our backyards. And then the economy. When we say the economy of the Central Wasatch, we largely mean the four world-renowned ski resorts that we find in Little and Big Cottonwood Canyons. And of course, also included in the economy system of these mountains are the smaller businesses, the restaurants, the ski shops, etc. Our member jurisdictions are here, as you can see. We have 9 voting members. Sandy City is one. We added the City of Holiday as a full voting member since the last time I was here to speak with you all. And we have 3 ex officio members, one of which is new since the last time I saw you. So we added the newest transit service, or transit service, High Valley Transit. High Valley Transit serves Park City and Summit County, and then we added 2 special advisors, Solitude Mountain Resort and Save Our Canyons, representing the economy system of the Wasatch and the environment and recreation systems of the Wasatch, respectively. Okay. Member jurisdiction benefits. So a reminder about what you as Sandy and as representatives of your constituencies receive as Sandy City is a member of member jurisdiction of the CWC. We, of course, approach land and watershed protection through a consensus approach. The 9 member jurisdictions that have votes that you just saw work together at each CWC meeting and in between at committee meetings. We have consensus-based transportation approaches, which is really important for a region like we have here in the Central Wasatch. Short-term improvements to the mountains, the Central Wasatch dashboard that has had a recent revitalization and updates made to the landing page of the dashboard, which I'm happy to show you. It's much more dynamic and user-friendly now, and regional stakeholder involvement. So what are the specific benefits to Sandy City? Ample collaborations with your jurisdictional neighbors that you would not have without the existence and participation with the CWC. Direct access to collective group advocacy efforts for environmental protection and conservation. So that is those collective group advocacy efforts are achieved through our work toward the passage and implementation of our cornerstone project, which is, of course, the Central Wasatch National Conservation and Recreation Area Act. That was an outgrowth of the Mountain Accord Charter. We can talk about it more in a subsequent slide. And then, of course, innovative platform for complex transportation discussions and solutions. So since the CWC has been in existence, you know that we have produced numerous transportation studies from the Big Cottonwood Canyon Mobility Action Plan. We just updated the Mill Creek Canyon shuttle feasibility plan. We submit public comments as a collective every time large-scale transportation and transit agencies open up a public comment period. And then, of course, we have our our ski bus priority access program, which Sandy City directly benefits from in partnership with the CWC. Okay. We also have a 35-member stakeholders council, which is composed of the stakeholder organizations that you see here. As I mentioned, the CWC is really the main and only convener for all of the various interests in these mountains. It's a really unique endeavor that we're doing that's not been replicated many places outside of the CWC or across the nation. And then also relatively new, although I've probably already spoken to you about this, I'm so impressed by our youth council. Relatively new to the CWC is a youth council, and they're just a really impressive group of young people who are interested and concerned about the happenings in the Central Wasatch Mountains. So if you have any young constituents that you think might be good additions to the Youth Council, please send them our way. This is a really fun way for young people to get involved, to grow their skill set, to network themselves, to have FaceTime with local policymakers like yourselves. Our mountain transportation work that I touched on briefly before, of course, we had our Mountain Transportation System project that Council Member Hausman was a participant in. Back in 2020 and 2021, the BCC map that you see here, the Mill Creek Canyon feasibility study, and then various public comments. So our ski bus priority access program that you see here, it's been a wild success since we started it in partnership and conjunction with Sandy City PD, UDOT, UTA, and Cottonwood Heights back in 2020, and since then it's become like a relied upon partnership amongst all of the partners that I just mentioned. Yeah, and it's relied upon for many Sandy City residents, I should say, as well. Okay, so the Central Wasatch dashboard, it is the dashboard I've spoken about a lot. You'll remember that it amasses all of the environmental data in the Central Wasatch into one unified place. Before the existence of the dashboard, folks had to know exactly what they wanted to learn about, and they had to know exactly where to find it. And now with the dashboard that I'm sharing my screen to show you, this is now the landing page. You can look at an interactive map. You can look at traffic counters in the Wasatch. Let's see where these are. Wildlife crossings here. You have, so traffic counters here, wildlife there. You have streams, the boundaries. So the boundaries for the CWNCRA can be illuminated on this map. And then you can tap on whatever you're interested in looking at, and then click on the hyperlinks on this map to get into the data sets. All right, getting back to the slides. And then relatively new is our Central Wasatch Symposium. This past January was our second symposium. The symposium consistently draws over 200 people. The first year we had Terry Tempest Williams as our keynote speaker. She brought people to tears with her lyrical prose that she read to us for her keynote. And then this year, Darren Perry, a Shoshone elder, also brought people to tears, which is not the intention with our keynotes. It just happens to be what ends up happening. And then what followed those two wonderful keynote addresses were 2 days of learning, networking, meeting each other, meeting folks who have similar interests, desire, like love for these mountains, desires for the long-term protection of the mountains, and then learning from the experts, the people who study and make their life's work out of learning and gathering data about what's in our backyard here. And then what we have here again is our short-term projects grant program. This is a really special grant program that has a lot of direct impact for Sandy City. Through this grant program over the years, the CWC has contributed funding for the maintenance of trailhead bathrooms in support of the U.S. Forest Service, support of the ongoing maintenance of the Lone Peak Wilderness Wag Bag kiosk, which is just down the road from where you folks are. That's how you get to the Lone Peak Trail through the Jacob's Ladder Trailhead. Maintenance of the aging fixed rock anchor hardware, which is a continual contribution. We contribute to the remediation of graffiti tags from rock faces, from Forest Service facilities, etc., to make sure our lands and water are as pristine as possible. And then we do also support things like shuttle programs and outdoor stewardship programs and outdoor education for children. And then last but not least, the cornerstone project, the core of the work at the CWC, the reason that the CWC exists arguably, is the Central Wasatch National Conservation and Recreation Area Act. The CWNCRA, since it was last drafted at the end of 2020, has been on hiatus to allow transportation studies and work to be completed. We, at the direction of the CWC's board, are picking work back up on the CWNCRA this year. We are re-engaging with important stakeholders like our ski resorts, like Salt Lake City and Sandy City Public Utilities, to talk about whether or not folks want to re-engage, purely if they have interest in working to modernize this bill to bring it up to a 2026 or 2027 draft bill. And overwhelmingly, the answer has been yes. The issues that this legislation sought to address when it was first drafted during the Mountain Accord process have not gone away. Those issues felt by everyone in these canyons have not, like I said, not gone away. In fact, they've gotten worse. They've been exacerbated by time and inaction. So yeah, there's a need. There's desire to re-engage, which has not always been the case. And so it's a really important time for all of the stakeholders to be at the table when we're picking up steam back on this legislation that would just provide immense value for the watershed protection, for Sandy City's watershed stake, for Salt Lake City's watershed stake, for the protection of the land, and for the balancing of the economic and the recreation interests. also new, we've added a new communications director. He's not here tonight, but his name is Will McKay. He's listed, he's third on this list. And with that, I will say thank you so much again for your time and attention. And if there are any questions right now, I'd be happy to entertain them. Yeah.
Council, does anyone have any questions for Lindsay from CWC? All right, Ms. Nickel, go ahead.
Hi, Lindsay. It's Chris.
Hi.
How do you directly support Save Our Canyons in their stewardship?
Oh,
projects?
yes. So let me get the slides back up. That was through a grant award to Save Our Canyons for that stewardship program directly. So how that worked, Councilmember Nickel, is Save Our Canyons applied for a short-term project grant, and they were awarded. And the way that grant funding is awarded is our short-term projects grant committee, which is staffed by a number of commissioners, usually 3 commissioners, deliberates. They consider all of the grant finalist applications in generally a 3-hour meeting once a year. They make those funding allocation decisions, and then they get to make the good calls, the happy calls to people that they have been awarded some funding. Yeah.
Thank you. So it was a grant from you. That's how you supported them, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Who else have you given grants to?
Yeah, so many people. I love this question. Let me stop sharing and let me reshare. We can get to the CWC's website and we can read it off very quickly there. And in the meantime, I'd like to say, Councilmember Nickel, I grew up in your district, District 3 in Sandy. Yeah. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so this is the CWC's website, cwc.utah.gov. Getting to the projects page, you can go to projects, short-term projects. You can just click on this, and that is how you navigate to this page that you see here. We have the eligibility requirements, how to apply, and you can, if you're interested, you can look at all of the awarded projects dating back from the start of the grant. So we've consistently awarded, the CWC has contributed some funding to the maintenance of the bathrooms. We've worked with Trails Utah. We've worked with Save Our Canyons, the Salt Lake City Climbers Alliance. We've worked with the Graffiti Busters, who does all that really important graffiti remediation work here. Like Friends of Alta, I know Utah Open Lands has been awarded in the past. Yeah, the Big Cottonwood Canyon Community Association has been awarded some funding in the past. Many organizations over the years. I think since the inception of this grant, we've been able to allocate like $300,000 to the community for projects directly on the ground, which has been really wonderful. Yeah, Cottonwood Canyons Foundation, EATS, environmental education programs in the Wasatch Back.
So how much approximately are the grants for?
Yeah, good question. They have a cap of, a request cap of $20,000. It's a short-term project, which means to be eligible, the project has to be completed within 1 calendar year, 12 months. And it's a small grant as well. So the cap, like I said, $20,000, and it varies from $5,000. I've seen $2,000 before, to all the way up to $20,000 before.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question.
Any more
Any
questions?
other questions?
Yeah, thank you. Any more? I'm seeing none. Lindsay, thank you for joining us tonight. I really appreciate your presentation.
I appreciate the time, and we genuinely appreciate Sandy's continued participation on the commission. I think honestly the everyone in Utah is better for it. So thank you so much, Council. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, item number 3 on our agenda is a discussion about development agreements, by right development approvals, housing development incentives. That comes from Lynn Pace.
Madam Chair, do you want me to meet here?
I think we ought to make you go up here.
It's because it's Love Your Attorney Day, right?
Wayne, you're a tall guy. If you would like me to raise that up, let me know.
We'll make it work. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Good to be with you. I am not entirely sure why I am the presenter for this topic, but we will, I think we can have a good discussion that will at least give us some direction as to the next steps. This is an outgrowth from our housing discussions last fall. And for those of you that were not on the council, at least I know you were aware of it. My role in all of that was mostly to facilitate the discussion, and I think that's sort of the role I will play tonight as well. One of the in the housing report that was adopted, one of the top priorities was addressing lack of lack of tools to enforce owner occupancy. And so our purpose tonight is to focus essentially on that one piece or that one priority, recognizing that we could have a similar discussion about other priorities, whether it's starter homes or affordable housing or senior housing. So this list of questions that I put into the memo was intended to address or to generate discussion about how we could use those tools to accomplish, in this case, owner occupancy objectives. So just by way of background, our general land use tools, what we think of as planning and zoning and our development code, generally deals with what can be developed on the property, what it looks like, how it functions, the height of the building, setbacks, things like that. But it doesn't give us the tools we need to determine who lives in the property and whether that is a renter or an owner or those types of things. So if those are things we care about, then we have to use different tools. And one of the things that we discussed in our housing plan was the significant differences between rented housing and owned housing. One creates more equity for the occupant and the owner. It also creates more neighborhood stability, et cetera, et cetera. But my point is our existing tools don't allow us to say we're zoning this property for single-family homes that have to be owner-occupied. It's just single-family homes. So if you want to say those need to be owner-occupied, and we had a great discussion about that a few weeks ago. Remind me, council member, what was the name of that project we were doing?
It was Fortner, yeah, the types of ownership.
And we had a discussion about how we would do that, and the ordinance was conditioned on the property being subdivided, sold, with a development agreement that created those obligations. Well, in effect, we did that by contract, not by regulation. And so the question is, one of the questions is how that contracting tool is one of the options we have to accomplish our objectives. So if you haven't already looked at the memo, please do, because I have 6 questions there. Now, I will just say in advance, I don't really expect or want 6 council members giving us feedback on 6 different questions, or we'll be here a long time. So we'll really sort of go through the questions, and then there's categories to think about. And while I would welcome discussion and feedback, and I know James and his team would, and others, tonight is a night to think about it and to give some general direction. This is not a decision-making night. This is a discussion night, if that makes sense. So the first question is, what are your top priorities with respect to owner-occupied housing? What is it we are trying to accomplish? Is it neighborhood stability? Is it getting equity for the homeowner? Is it first-time home buyers? What target are we shooting at? Because knowing what our objectives are will help us make it easier for us to craft the tools we need to try to accomplish the objective. So question number one is just sort of an overarching question. What are our goals relative to owner-occupied housing? Okay. Item number two, how important is it to you that, and I will just say, most of these questions apply to what will be newly created housing, because we can't go back and impose new requirements on housing that already exists. So this is looking forward, prospective. How important is it to you that we create for sale housing product rather than just rental? Or what exists today is leaving it up to the developer or the property owner. You've got X number of units approved, either in an apartment, in a single building, or in separate detached buildings. You decide if you want to rent it or sell it. So, so if that's, question number one is, how important is it to create for sale housing? Question number three, how important is it that to maintain owner occupancy after that unit is subdivided and sold? And that was, again, a discussion we had the other night, and we said, well, we're for purposes of that prior case, it's enough if we just get it subdivided, and then we'll let the individual owners decide what they want to do after that. If that's all we care about, we have tools that can accomplish that. If you want not just to create a for sale product, but then to make sure that we maintain owner occupancy going forward, then we need a different set of tools. Question number four, if you care about maintaining owner occupancy of those units, how long do we care about? Is this a 5-year restrictive covenant? Is it a 10-year? Or is it perpetual? Just by way of example, there are a lot of projects that have these kinds of restrictions on ownership or occupancy. Think of rent-controlled apartments in New York City. And those are perpetual. And you can live there as long as you meet those income requirements. As soon as you make too much money, they ask you to move out so someone else who is eligible can move in. That's a perpetual restriction on the unit, right? And it requires a certain amount of monitoring. There are other requirements that have owner occupancy or affordability limitations for a restrictive, they record a restrictive covenant against it, or a deed restriction against the property that expires in 5 years or 10 years. So a window of time, but not forever. Those are questions to think about, right? And so those first four questions really sort of focus on what our goals are, what are we trying to accomplish. And then 5 and 6 are questions about what incentives we're willing to offer in exchange for these restrictions. Because anytime you say to a developer or property owner, you can't do whatever you want with this property, we're limiting your use. We're requiring you to sell this, or requiring you to sell it only to a first-time home buyer, only to someone who has limited income. You have narrowed the range of marketability for that product. And so typically they'll say, I don't want to do that, unless we create some incentive, right? Well, we'll give you more units. We'll give you some financial assistance. That's where Casey comes in, right? Or some package so we help them to create the product that we want them to create. What incentives are we willing to consider? If you look at our plan, which I know you haven't recently, but I did, it says here in the plan, it talks about incentives being, possible incentives, density bonuses. So instead of getting X units, you get X plus some ratio. City assistance, land write-downs, city-sourced funding, fee waivers, impact fee reductions. So it's basically city subsidy of the project. Third one, accelerated approval process. You reduce soft costs by moving projects more quickly through the permitting and inspection. You basically say, you move to the front of the line with your project. Okay. There are other incentives you could also think of. In some places, they have given additional height or reduced parking requirements or reduced setbacks or other dimensional aspects that create more value for the developer. All of those are just things to think about, right? And then the last question I had here, and again, this isn't an exhaustive list of questions, it's just a place to start the conversation. And that is, are you willing, or if we think through this enough, are we comfortable enough with the incentives we offer that we would say, this is a package of incentives we're willing to offer to anyone who comes? So much so that we'll put it in our code. Now, we typically don't do that because, as I was talking to Councilmember Sharkey earlier, you trust yourselves more than others, and so you say, no, we'll deal with you on a one-by-one basis. So you, property owner or developer, come negotiate with us, we'll negotiate something we agree to. And then the next project, we negotiate, and we negotiate, we negotiate. You can do that, but that's far less attractive to developers and property owners because it is let's make a deal on every property and they never know where they're going to end up. If you could come up, in theory, if you said, for example, we really like owner-occupied units, so if you'll build condominiums instead of apartments, we'll give you 150% of the density. Instead of 10 units, you get 15. Or something like that, and you put it in the code. Now, a developer knows what they can do in advance. They don't have to come and play, let's make a deal with the council. It's in the code already, and they can go directly to staff and say, I'd like to take that deal. So it creates a greater incentive just by virtue of being predictable. Does that make sense? So, with that much introduction, I'm going to turn it back to you and say, what do you want to talk about? Or what direction would you like to give us? And again, this is just starting the conversation. We're far from the decision part of that conversation.
Ms. Hausman, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, thank you. Like, we have been asking to have this conversation. It keeps coming up through all of our housing workshops, and so I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of weigh in. I like the guiding questions. I've given them some thoughts, but I think just for the sake of time, maybe I'll just sort of give my high level and then go from there. I think for me, and I can only speak for me, homeownership is the priority. And I'm talking lasting homeownership, deed restriction, 10 years.
No, keep quiet. I'm just going to get that.
Oh, okay. He's saying, and that's all, Marcy. Be quiet. I thought maybe I said something
Your
wrong.
3 minutes is up. I'm sorry.
I recognize there's give and take to this. So I am not naive to the fact that in order to get home ownership, which, and again, I'm just speaking for myself, that is, for me, our number one priority. My number one priority, I should say. I shouldn't speak for our. Because to address the housing affordability challenge, we need to be thinking about making it possible to be a homeowner in Sandy. And right now, it is ridiculously difficult. So I understand what you're saying is, hey, council, if this is a priority and you want home ownership, and as developers come, and there's an opportunity to redevelop something, do something creative, repurpose, whatever, what are your priorities? And so I guess I wanted to just lead out with that. It is home ownership. It is deed restriction, so that continues the property even after a sale. I want because we are so limited that when new builds happen, I want it to be so that people can be either first-time homeowners, homeowners that downsize into something smaller that works for them, etc. I want to fill in the missing middle. I don't want to do it with rentals. I want to do it with home ownership. I want to make home ownership a reality for more and more people who want to live in Sandy. Now, because that is the priority, I also feel the need to share what I think are the give and take. Like, what you bring up such an important point around incentives. In order for that to be appealing to developers, they have to know that we understand what they're trying to do too. And so I want to make sure that our partner developers, because that's what I see. The only way we solve this challenge is if we see developers as partners in this work. I just want to make sure we're really clear on what our priorities are. So I would be open, and I do want to check the memo here because I made some notes on the different incentives that I think are worth considering. And we've talked about some of these before. I recognize that some might be uncomfortable with, incentives. I want to make sure that everything I'm saying today is not interpreted as I'm anti-developer or I'm anti-density. I am pro-community, pro-home ownership. And if we don't take a stand and allow things to run course, what ends up happening is a whole lot of rental. My husband and I were just talking this morning, looking around our neighborhood at the number of single-family homes in just a regular residential community surrounding us that are now rentals. I get it. People are making investments, and so they see an opportunity, they buy, and they convert it to a rental. I understand that. I'm not anti-investment either, but if we are looking to fill in the missing middle, I want to put some constraints in place that say, bring us a project where you are prioritizing home ownership, and here's some things that we're willing to take a look at. So from your list, I think these are appropriate incentives. So I do like, and I know others may not like this, I like your recommendation, and maybe it wasn't a recommendation, maybe you're just giving it as an example, but rather than this piece by piece by piece, this one-off, I do like the idea, would very much welcome recommendations around codifying something that allows developers to know, if I put this package, whatever we ultimately land on, but if I put this package together, it's in code that Sandy will let me do this. Like, I want to build fast. I want to remove as many barriers as possible. So I am curious about that, what that would look like, so that it isn't every single thing coming to the Planning Commission and following our whole process. What could a sort of package look like that we can all agree on and gets put in code? Obviously, I think low-hanging fruit is expedited permitting and plan review. So if a developer partner is coming to us and saying, I am committed to owner occupancy, I'm committed to your 10-year requirement, deed restriction, here's my project, they could expect us to move that quickly. I'm interested in reducing fees, so long as they are honoring that kind of restriction duration that we've been talking about. I like what you just said. It was something I had made a note of what does it look like for us to say, we're not interested in rentals, but if you go to homeownership deed restrictions, I would be interested in, if it's in the right, of course, if it's in the place that we've all agreed that we're open to slightly increased density, I would be open to a nudge even further that guarantees home ownership. So like the example you just gave was, instead of this is the density, we would increase it by this percentage because you have committed to 10, 15 years of deed restricted home ownership. I think that's, I've got a lot that I've been thinking about. I guess I'll just sum it up this way. I'm looking for partners in this work. I'm looking for people who will see an opportunity to be part of the solution in a way that works for them, but also works for us. And they come to us knowing what we have indicated are, this is what we're looking for: partners who will build, who will think about the missing middle, and will sign on the dotted line that this will be owner occupied. I'll stop now.
May I respond to that? Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful. And others will want to hear from you as well. Let me ask a couple of follow-up questions that I think may be helpful to others. When we talk about getting a commitment, what we can't do by regulation today we can do by agreement. So a mutual agreement, but that's only if the city is giving something beyond the base zoning that exists today. So if I have the right to build a single-family home, and I can rent that home or sell it, and you come to me and say, I want you to commit that you'll only own it or sell it, I would say, why should I sign that commitment, right? I've already got the right to do that. So the only way we're going to get that commitment is if we give them something more than what's on the table already. Okay. So, and what does that look like? Take the Cairns area or a higher density area. You might give them more units in the building, more apartments, more condos, whatever it might be. In the vast majority of the area in our city is low density or very low density. What that means is you're giving them smaller building lots so they can get more lots, even if they're single family detached. You're giving them more of them in exchange for a commitment. Is that what you had in mind?
Great clarifying question. Because I value the community impact of home ownership, and I don't want this to be interpreted as I think renters don't take care of property. I mean, before we could afford a house, we had to rent. As you know, new young marrieds, there's a place for rental. I'm not trying to eliminate rental, but we have a lot of rental stock, and I think that is available. I am trying to make home ownership possible, and there are people who are paying rent that if we had the right housing stock, the amount they're paying in rental costs could get them in a home. They could be homeowners. They could have a mortgage. They could start building equity. We just have to get the right housing stock. We have to get the right build partners. So I'm not anti-rentals, but I am trying to get people to be homeowners and start building equity.
Right. So anyway.
So yes.
Thank you. What I want to make sure you're aware of, though, is that what this means is if you have a couple of homes on existing lots and everything in the neighborhood is built out a half acre, I'm just using that as an example. In order to get guaranteed home ownership, you have to give that homeowner who has a half acre, who ordinarily would build or rebuild one home, we have to give them more than that. And so by definition, it's going to be something slightly more than what the code allows today, and that may create some neighborhood friction, saying, this is all this half acre neighborhood. No, right? And you have to say, but we're trying to promote it. And you see, that's why you guys get paid the big bucks, because you get to make those hard decisions. But you have to be willing to give something in exchange, or we won't get a contract and we won't get the commitment. So,
and I'm glad you're clarifying, because it gives me a chance to say it again. I understand that, and I know I might be the only one, but that's what you're asking for. Is right. You want to know, and I'm just being very, very direct.
Okay. You also asked about home ownership, but also lasting home ownership. You have a sense duration?
Minimum 10 years.
Okay, so
I want duration. And let me go back to that previous one really quickly. I'm not talking about throwing high rises on if we have a half acre lot and we allow that person to go from a half acre lot to 2 quarter acre lots and build single family homes on 2 acres. That's what I'm talking about. Not throwing high rise condos up in the middle of the neighborhood. But I do believe that there is community value in having home ownership in the community, even if it means my neighbor that only had one house, there's 2 houses on quarter acre lots, but those I know are not going to be converted to rentals or short-term rentals, I know it's a give and take, and all I can do is answer where I've landed on all of this.
And this is just a discussion.
Yeah.
But by definition, we just need to know.
Yep.
If you're going to increase the amount of housing, that's going to, in some place, somewhere, change the status quo in the neighborhood. And that may create a little bit of friction. So, okay. Thank you. Other comments? Other feedback?
Ms. Nickel.
Thank you. So I kind of feel like we're talking up here when we're ready to talk down here a little bit.
I'm ready for the feedback.
Okay. So the last rezone we did was a great example of everyone was saying, just do a deed restriction. there's a lot more that goes into a deed restriction than anybody here could imagine. Who brings the deed restriction? How that works is really important, and how much we interfere will drive the market as well, right? And so I want something like that. What does condo ownership mean? What does HOA versus and a PUD? What are those functions of those people? In fee simple, the types of ownership different. In a condo, it's much different. There's no land, that type of thing, and I think we really need to have a great understanding of that, because I think condos are a flexible, great idea to meet this middle housing. Also, I think we do have density bonuses in the land development code now, which is in the PUD section, I believe, right? Yeah. So maybe a brief history on what we have now to incentivize people to do those types of building would be great, because we're talking up here. We always talk up here.
Do you want Brian at this?
No,
microphone?
we
Okay.
need to be talking down here because we're ready to act.
Yeah. Well, just on your point, in terms of restrictions on owner occupancy going forward, it's easy to say and harder to do. Okay.
Exactly.
One, you have to have a means of monitoring who is occupying that home. And so that might be an annual reporting requirement, but somebody has to inquire and verify who owns the home and who's living in it and whether or not those two match. Okay, that's piece number one. Piece number two is what happens when it doesn't match. You committed to owner occupancy and the owner isn't there. Then what do we do?
What's the repercussion?
Right,
Yeah.
and so one question is, who does that? Is it the city? Well, that requires staffing and monitoring. Okay. You can do it through an HOA where you create this project, housing project. If it's big enough, you can require an HOA.
When you say you, be more specific.
The city could require, as part of approval of the project, that they create an HOA, and one of the terms would be owner occupancy, and they would be tasked with policing their own.
In the CCNRs.
In the CCNRs,
Okay.
correct. Another version that Dan brought to my attention, Park City has had a lot of these challenges with workforce housing, and so they have criminalized non-owner occupancy. And I'm not sure how well that works. I don't think they've incarcerated anyone. But they've said that as soon as the police show up, they get very quick compliance. But it's one more tool. We have not looked extensively yet at how other cities enforce, for instance, affordability requirements if they're no longer eligible. The challenge you've got is you've got an occupant in that house that you can't really just put out on the street. So it usually ends up being some form of monetary fines as a disincentive to comply. But whoever does that, it's a significant staffing time and expense to monitor that. And it starts out small, but the more of these you assemble over time, the greater that task becomes.
And the apartments on 90th South below the car dealership is a really good example. That project was built not low income, the rent is based on your income. And so you see a lot of school teachers in there. That was funded through the government, partial up, some of it, not the federal government, not us, but those types of restrictions come from the federal government when they lend money on these types of dwelling units. And all of these tools probably aren't going to work on a 2 or 3 or 6 lot new subdivision, right?
Right.
A lot of these would be, some of the tools would be utilized in substantially larger. And so if we could get an idea of how those types of ownerships would function in a 2 lot, we're talking about doing one dwelling unit that has 4, like a 4-plex in it, that type of thing. What could we use to regulate those?
Right.
That's my thought.
And if they are, I have spent a fair amount of time exploring why we're not getting condominiums the way we used to. There are insurance. Yeah, it's not the size, the look of the box, whether it's apartments or condominiums, is the same, right? So it's not local government that's
It's
creating
the way
the
you
obstacle.
build.
It's financing, it's insurance, it's liability issues, it's complicated issues, some building code issues, fire code issues. But I have heard from other sources that the financing of condominiums is very difficult. So you can build a fourplex and rent it more economically than you can build a fourplex and sell the units. Okay, so if that's the case, we'd have to figure out some mechanism to make up that gap, or no one's going to do it. Salt Lake City, a few years ago, said, we will let anyone anywhere in the city subdivide your property if the additional unit you add is affordable. They've had very few takers because the cost of building the unit is so challenging that the affordability restrictions on occupancy make it so they created the opportunity on paper, but no developers, no property owners have taken it because.
And here's another thing, I mean, if we would allow an apartment building, we could allow them to be built, we would regulate them to be built at condo spec, so at some time they could be sold units because they are built differently, and that's kind of a holdup in the apartments that we have now. They could never go to condo ownership because of the way that they were built.
Yeah, I guess I don't know the answer. I don't have all the expertise, but I know that early in my career when I was working in Salt Lake City, we would frequently get condo conversions, existing apartment buildings that were converted. I don't know how they did it and what the obstacles were, but we'd want to know what those are to enable that in advance. But if you think about it, version one is in an area like the Cairns where you have, multifamily dwelling units, and how many of those are owned or rented. And the others are, if you really want to increase the availability of housing, we have to be able to do that in the single-family neighborhood areas, because that's the vast majority of the city. So there are two different models, and the sort of the hybrid of that is what you see currently. Sometimes you see twin homes that are attached, but they're separately sold. Okay, that's sort of a hybrid, sort of an in-between version of those two. So you're interested mostly in facilitating the monitoring of the homeownership. Did I say that right, or did I miss your?
No, I mean, on the exact tools that we can use, such as a deed restriction, what's the definition of that, and how does that look? The fundamentals of it, just who places the deed restriction? How does it work? Does it get recorded? All of those things.
Yeah, I can tell you, typically, a deed restriction is recorded. It's by contract, or it's on the plat. It gets recorded the time the unit is created. Yes, it is recorded against the property. The bugaboo is who monitors and who enforces, and what are your remedies.
Versus a deed restriction versus a contract.
Right? Those are two different names for the same thing.
I know.
A deed restriction is a contract, but it is recorded against the property.
Yeah, and it's perpetual, usually.
Yes, or for 10 years or whatever the duration you want.
Yeah.
So, okay, anything else? Other feedback?
Madam Chair, can I ask a follow-up question? Just related to enforcement. Enforcement's always been, of owner occupancy, has kind of been the sticky wicket, in my opinion. But, we have an ALJ, an administrative law judge. When I'm wondering, do you feel like it would be possible to administratively enforce it in some fashion through the ALJ?
That's a good question. I should probably say I don't know. That's the safest answer tonight. I would hope so. The state code has specific provisions for administrative enforcement, and most of those are aimed at code enforcement, nuisance, weeds, junk, that type of thing. I'd have to review the state code to see if it's broad enough to encompass something like this. So it might be, I don't know.
Part of the land development code, potentially?
Well, if the state authorizes it, then yes, then we could incorporate that.
Ms. Stroud?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Go back up to the questions a little bit. My top priorities, are the neighborhood stability, but also long-time creating long-time home ownership. People that are coming in and setting down their roots, and making Sandy, their home, not just temporarily, not just for a couple of years, but have plans to be here for quite a while. So, and I guess that kind of ties into, when you were looking at like question number 4, how long, I think 10-year kind of for deed restrictions. This is just, very superficial. I'm sure that there are pros and cons to doing shorter and then possibly longer as well, but I really am looking kind of for that long-term benefit. It is very important for me to create for-sale housing. I don't have as much, emphasis, on, well, it has to be affordable or it has to be, a specific type, as just saying, I'm just looking for owner occupancy. Whether that is somebody that is sizing down, that had a larger home, that, this is their second or third or fourth home, throughout their lifetime, and they're now 70 years old and looking for a smaller home, smaller yard, whatever that might be, but in a community that they love, that they feel safe in, then that would be, to me, I wouldn't want to restrict it to first-time home owners on that. But there's probably a little bit of a balance to that, and I don't know what that looks like. But, I don't have a high interest of saying it's got to be low income or it's got to be first-time home owners, because I think that there are other areas that people may qualify that I wouldn't want to exclude. Let's see. Maintain owner occupancy to those housing units after the initial sale. Yes, but I don't know for how long. And I think it kind of goes with that deed restriction, and it probably just takes a little more discussion. I wouldn't want, somebody to go in, buy the house, they turn it over in 2 years, and somebody else buys it, they turn it over in 2 years, and it just continues, and it's, okay, now it's a rental, and it becomes a rental, or that's some sort of workaround, but that's where the legal minds can work on that. So, I'm not sure with that. Incentives, yes, the density, and I know that we've got some of that in there in our code already. I'd be looking at, density, fee waivers, accelerated approval, yes. City funding, kind of looking at something with Casey right now already on that. I do have concern with opening density kind of everywhere. I don't think in the middle of a neighborhood throwing in and saying, well, we're going to double your density. To codify that, I'm looking at this, I guess, a little more. You can take little steps forward, but if you take a giant step and you go, oh boy, what did we do? Can't take that back. So smaller steps, and in codifying, and I understand, saying, hey, a developer can see this and be like, that's the package I want. I'm going to seek that out and I'm going to go for it because it is clear to them. And I understand, how that can be beneficial, but at the same time, it doesn't fit everywhere. Sandy's landlocked. And to say, here's our set, here's our criteria, go for it. And then we realize because somebody comes forward and does something in an area that we're going, actually, we, except for that area, we made a mistake. I want to try to stay away from as many of those as we can. So I'd be looking at maybe some more of the baby steps forward first. So yeah, codifying not yet, I guess more of the case by case, and I know that makes it a little more challenging. And then it is less ideal for developers. I would be, I had a very similar question with the ALJ, that Dustin had, is this something that an ALJ can be a part of that process? What does that look like? With Park City, looking at criminalizing that seems to be a pretty bold step forward. But, we have this law judge kind of stepping in and doing some really great things. But right now we're looking at lawns and cars and, more of that fact. But so I'd be interested in that part of it. I don't know, does that give you kind of the high level? I know you were
Yeah,
saying.
one follow-up question. You mentioned that you wanted to incentivize or encourage long-time homeownership. Does that mean that you're not, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but, so tell me if I'm getting this wrong. Are you looking for destination homes, or are you also looking for starter homes? Because starter homes, by definition, may not be long-term owners.
Maybe both. Maybe
So,
both. I mean,
Yeah,
it's.
that's why
yeah.
your comment gave me pause, just to make sure I understand what you're after there.
And I guess and I understand the need for starter homes. I mean, that's.
Back in the day, when I bought my first home in Sugar House, when it was a starter home community, there was a sense that you would buy your starter home, and after a period of years, you would save enough money and get enough equity that you would buy your destination home, right? And then there were neighborhoods where the homes were larger and more expensive, and the people who moved in there moved in to stay. They were going to raise their family, and they might move when all their kids were gone, but they were here for the duration. So I didn't know if that's what you meant to suggest or not. I didn't want to misinterpret you.
And a little bit of both, because that's, a starter home, I think, as I look at it now, what a lot of our younger families are saying is a starter home is often an apartment, because that's something that they are starting in, yet it's not a 1 year or 18-month lease, and then, or 2 years, and we've saved enough money for a down payment. They're needing to be in these rental units for quite a while. And with the expense and the cost to it, that 3-4 years is turning into 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And some people are just not able to save when they're putting $2,000 a month, $2,200 a month towards rent. They're just not able to save for a home. I mean, in 30 years, you set aside a couple $100 a month, in 30 years you'll have enough for a down payment.
Well, unless you build a small home on a small lot that costs less.
To a certain extent, I think. I mean, even a small home and a small lot, we're still looking at $500,000. I mean, that's still just a lot of money. So I think that there's both. This last summer I was up walking. I had a resident call me and say, "Hey, really unhappy with large corporations buying these houses." Walked up and down his street, and he pointed. He goes, "That's a rental. That's a rental. Then the same business that owns that one and that one and that one owns this one and this one," and it was more than half of this street. And it really became evident how many rentals we have, and a lot of them are by large businesses, these corporations. So I'm looking at home ownership, where people can come and say, this isn't just a house, this isn't a housing unit, this is my home, this is my city. And I plan to be here for quite a while. So but I do think, yes, both. I mean, that destination and starter home. There's time and a place for both of them, and a need, I think, for both. Not everybody's looking for their starter home. They've been in their starter home and they're saying, "I love Sandy, but I need a bigger home, or I want something that fits my family or me, or just my significant other a little bit differently." And I don't want to exclude that either. Just home ownership.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Christensen.
So when we're talking about this, my brain jumps to short-term rentals and how we've codified that, right? And it sounds, and maybe I'm making a big jump here, but that's the direction we're headed in, is codifying the number of rentals you can have in a neighborhood, an area, something. And so, am I just making that up?
Well, I thought you were going to go a different direction. I thought you were going to say short-term rentals, we have regulations, and they are a nightmare to enforce.
They are.
Yeah, they are.
That's the second part of my, Yes. But that's what it feels like this discussion, is the overall arching thing is, if we want to incentivize home ownership, the only way that we can do that is we can incentivize all we want, but once it's sold or past that, we're back in the same situation possibly.
Well, this is why I want to know what you're after. The existing housing stock is what it is,
Uh-huh.
so it wouldn't affect any of that. We're talking about new development that occurs incrementally, large, small projects, and how you can encourage what you want more of, okay, and incentivize that. So and many of these projects, I'll take the Salt Lake City model where you have a lot more multifamily housing. Oftentimes, someone will go into those and they say, we're not going to prohibit all rentals because we have people who either travel a lot or they work overseas or they want to go on a mission and they don't want to sell it. They have to move just because. So they allow a certain percentage of rentals, or a lot of HOAs will allow no more than X percent of these units to be rented at any given time. So it may not be all or nothing. That's piece number one. Piece number two is that for wherever the rules apply, so if there is a restriction for owner occupancy, then that unit could not be occupied by someone who is not the owner. So de facto, that would prohibit corporate ownership, right? So it's going to be purchased by an individual, and then you would be essentially be insisting that individual, as long as they own it, that they occupy it. And the day they don't occupy it, you would insist that they sell it to someone who's willing to do that. That's the concept we're after.
But that, like, in my head, that jumps us straight to, like, that's in essence, short-term rentals are the same, and I think that ADUs we're going to be in the same boat with that, like how we handle those restrictions. You can be owner occupied, but you can have an ADU. Like, what are our, like, how do we?
Right, so I'll just use ADUs as an example, whether it's an internal ADU in the basement or an external in the backyard. State code says cities can require owner occupancy, meaning we're not going to let you have an ADU in the backyard or in the basement unless you, the owner, are living in the building. Most cities have imposed that as a requirement. Now, why? Because we get a lot less mischief if the owner is on the property, right?
Yeah.
We don't get as many noise complaints, as many nuisance complaints, parking, because the owner manages it. But you still have to find a mechanism to police it.
Yes.
But by definition, if you have 2 units there, you can only require the owner to occupy one of them.
One of them, yes.
So you're de facto authorizing a rental unit in exchange for a guarantee of owner occupancy of the primary unit.
Which I'm not opposed to. I'm just saying, like, maybe that's one of our triggers, is that if we make ADUs owner occupied, one of the 2 buildings, then that encourages owner occupancy and provides rental spaces.
Correct.
So we may not be as worried about not having rentals. Like, how much do we even have any idea how much of our city is rentals? Historic's about 50%, but that's one very small piece of it.
I'm sure James knows the answer to that. He knows the answer to most of these questions.
About 18.8%.
So 18% of our city is, 19% of our city is already in this situation, and I'm assuming we'll only.
Including apartments, right, James? Including
Just what we
apartments.
would consider rentals, not single family, just multifamily type rentals.
Do we know how many, like, what we would consider single-family homes?
Isn't that the question I asked Jake and you got copied on? So I was curious about that as the starting point. Like, do we have a problem to solve, right? And it always starts, where are you? So I asked Jake and you got copied on the answer and so did you. So the question was, we looked at only single-family detached homes because once you got into multiple units, it was hard to know what they were anymore. So single-family detached homes was by far the biggest quantity. What we found was 8% were either vacant or rented. 8% of our single-family detached homes.
That we know of, right? Like, how would we know?
Through a census. It was through the census.
Okay, so assuming people were accurate, 8%.
So if they have a different address, other than the property address, that's one of the indicators that it's rented.
That it's not owner occupied.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
just to put this in contrast, Salt Lake City, which is twice as large as any other city in the state, is majority renter.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking, like, I'm not opposed to like, I agree with almost everything everyone said, right? I want a mechanism. I want some details about how it happens. I want to incentivize long-term housing. My brain is just jumping to like this umbrella that I think applies to multiple pieces of what we're facing as a city right now. And I actually started talking to James and his team about this, but just there's a way we can like manage this and make the, because I think the ALJ is a great way to enforce it, but it's, can we, or the big questions I have, can we enforce it? Can we, how do we do that?
Right. And the, I think there's also a threshold there where you may say, if you say this has to be 100% owner occupied, that's going to be less appealing than if there's some latitude, right? Now, again, bear in mind, there's a different set of rules for multifamily housing than for single-family neighborhoods. The incentives you would give in a single-family neighborhood is still more density, but it's going to be smaller lots, smaller homes, and then you might insist that all of those be owner occupied. So, okay, all right.
I don't really have much
With great reluctance, he's going to share his wisdom with us.
I mean, I don't have much new to add. I will throw out, though, like, home ownership is important, and I think we mostly think of it in terms of first-time ownership. But as I think about it, it's like different pathways to get to ownership, and something we talked about in the workshops were like cottage housing. We're in this silver tsunami. Representative Okerlund, I think, was here talking about his neighbors have like 10 bedrooms in all the houses around, and they're not being used, and his neighbors are stuck there, and they're 70, 80, and they're going to be stuck. So that is a pathway for home ownership to get them out into something else. That's important to me in the grand scheme of it. But I think we should be really intentional about creating conditions where those home ownership options are reality, and we should make it so that they can't be rapidly changed into rental units. I agree with a deed restriction of 10 years. I think that would be great. It would create the stability of the goals that the city is working on, but not be overly burdensome to buyers down the road. I think that's a reasonable window. One thing that hasn't been mentioned, like we've talked about density bonuses, expedited review, things like that. I think reduced parking requirements in certain areas, especially near transit, would be a bonus that I'd get behind. And the last question, definitely yes, we should codify those incentives with a good system so that we have periodic review and flexibility to adjust to make sure that we're hitting the goals that we want to target. Thank you.
Because it's Be Nice to Lawyers Day, I'm going to agree with something you said.
Just one.
I completely agree with, if we want to get something, we have to give something. It is not my goal that starting now, every single home built in Sandy is owner occupied. That is not my goal. We're going to set a new condition on the next 5,000 homes that don't apply to the previous 30,000. So I would tie owner occupancy to affordability. That's how I would tie it. I think if we want affordable housing, then we give the incentives. If we are giving an incentive, no matter what incentive that takes, we are paying part of the cost. We are giving a density bonus. Whatever the incentive is, then I think we have the ability to place a condition. So to me, that's just logical. If we're going to get something, we have to give something. What did we give on Fortner?
In that case, an increase in the density.
So
upzoned
as compared to, so we had annexed them in 6 months before, and we had annexed them in at the same zoning that they had in the county. However, remember the builder said, I'm giving you a proposal that's the same as your general plan. So once our general plan becomes a zoning map, then we lose that ability. So I'm going to say we did something for Fortner on a technicality that maybe soon won't exist anymore. And the reason I bring this up too is because if density bonuses are a really good tool, I agree with that. Density bonuses are a good tool. But did we already start at too high a density in our general plan? That's my question I'm asking. So it's something we may consider. We may need to backpedal a little bit. But if we as a city are giving any incentive, whether it be dollars, whether it be land, whether it be additional density, whatever it is, I think that we have the ability in that case to set conditions. And that could be a deed restriction, but I think it would be in the pursuit of affordable housing. Now, I assume the question's going to come up about how do you define that? I don't care if we define it on a case-by-case basis, or if we define it as 80% AMI, or whatever we define it as. But the more granular we get, to your point, the more workload it is. And this is not small. I mean, let's say it's workforce housing. Every time there's a turnover, we have to make sure somebody complies. Whatever it is, this is a big deal. I don't think we have a problem with developers wanting to develop in Sandy. I don't see that being a problem. Like, we set up too many barriers, too many expectations. I don't see that. I've never heard that. I know home builders, they don't say that. But I want to, part of building more housing is attracting developers. And the more contracts we put in front of them and the more expectations, the more we repel them instead of attract them.
Correct.
So I don't know how we strike this balance. What I do know is on April 29th, this is the first meeting of the steering committee for the Land Development Code, and we're about to undertake all of this. To me, this feels like coordination with that effort, rather than, I think what's coming in terms of affordability and housing and missing middle, I think that's all teed, if I have that right, I think that's teed up pretty early in the process. So I think that process is going to inform us, maybe even more than what we've said informs you, but I just want to make sure that as we tighten these screws a little bit in our pursuit of affordable housing, that we are doing it in a way that doesn't place huge burdens on either our staff or the builders and developers. I don't know what all this looks like, so I'm just saying, but I don't. Owner occupancy is only my goal contractually if it's paired with affordability. That's where I am.
Okay, thank you for that feedback. A couple of thoughts, and I don't want to belabor the discussion tonight because I think we've gotten some good feedback to start with. If you think about, several of you talked about codifying this, and what you might say is, the city's willing to offer these kinds of incentives. We will offer those incentives for owner occupancy, or for affordability, or for senior. You can give them a menu of options, right? And you, developer, property owner, decide which one you want to pursue, but we're here to partner in making that happen. Okay, but the housing plan was premised on the notion that we wanted more housing, the right kind, in the right places, et cetera, et cetera. Again, multifamily housing, someplace like the Cairns area, is very different than in the single-family neighborhoods. So ask yourself, we don't need to belabor this tonight, but ask yourself, What incentives would you be willing to offer to get more housing, meaning more units, in a single-family neighborhood? Think about that. Second point, just for you to think about, we have several projects coming up soon. We have a project over here on 90th South. We may have a project at Crescent View Middle School. What do you want to see happen there? What incentives are you willing to give to get what you want built there? That's not 2 years away. That's soon. So you need to think about that. And that brings me to point number 3, and that is, how fast do you want to pursue this? Do you want to just do this as part of the general plan rewrite that will be finished by the end of 2027? Or do you want to move it faster than that? I won't be orchestrating that, but that would be helpful to know. I think those are my points. So give that some thought. We can circle back whenever you want to have a further discussion. But I think this is a good start for us to think further about next steps, and that's what we'll do.
So James, I'd like to invite you up if you want to add some comments on, timing and what specifically is happening when.
So on the development code rewrite, we just worked through the first outline of that, which you will be hearing those who are on the committee on the 29th, who can bring that back obviously to the city council. They've broken the 18 months into 3 different tiers, and each of those tiers are basically 6.5 months each. In the first one, you directed us in our workshop, through the workshop series, and then as you approved the housing document that came out of the workshops, in that you directed us to work on certain things in a certain order, and that's what you recommended to us. That's what we passed along to the consultant, and in tier 1, they will be addressing, that's in the first 6 months, they will be addressing stationary area plans, the framework for those. There's several other things like LUDMA compliance, but I won't get into that because it's not housing. They will be addressing ADU reform, but we will have already finished that. We're pretty much doing our first presentation on that next week to you. They will be addressing mixed use TOD standards. Those will address our shopping centers and the some of those areas that we have housing that the general plan called for in those areas. And that will definitely include and can include affordable housing as part of that discussion as well. They are addressing missing middle housing standards in the first 6 months, and that would address the things that you're talking about tonight. Zoning consolidation and land use matrix modernization will be in the first 6 months. So this part of it, we moved it to the front. That's when they're doing it, and they're supposed to have that done in the first 6 to 7 months.
Okay, first thing teed up is external ADUs, and that's coming right away. Okay. All right, anything else, anyone? Nope.
Madam Chair, can I just add something?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to know, as James just mentioned, external ADUs is coming up, and then there was a third item, right, that we had as an initial, and that was specific city and RDA-owned properties and some recommendations on things that might happen on those, which Casey is going to talk about. I believe it was in June. And so those 2 things are on the list, right? One of the main reasons I think we talked about this tonight was because it became clear in the series that owner occupancy was so important to the majority of you. And I'll be honest with you, I think it's the most complicated question that's before us. And so I think we've taken some notes on things that you've requested that would be helpful. What I would ask is, over the next week, if you could think about this in a little bit more detail, specifically focusing on what other information do I personally need in order to start making decisions in the future related to owner occupancy and how that might apply to future housing in Sandy. And I'd ask you to email those to me so that we can have a conversation as a group and figure out how best to answer those questions. Again, Chris, you already brought up a few questions that you had I've written down, And Allison, you brought up some questions, and Cindy, those are all, I've written those down, but if there's anything that wasn't brought up tonight, please let me know so that we can make sure to hit that target in terms of answering your questions, giving you the information that you need to move forward in the future. Does that make sense, what I'm asking for? Cindy's smiling at me like it doesn't make sense.
I think one thing that I don't know if you wrote it down, but that Lynn mentioned is location.
Yeah.
So where are we talking about doing these kind of, I think
Yeah.
that's really critically important
In-
too. So.
We talked about that, if you recall, in one of our workshops. And so there is some information about that in the report, but that's not the end-all, be-all. I don't think, again, that's why I think this is probably the most complicated question. It's really easy to work on ADUs. It's easy to work on, well, hey, here's a particular property. What are we going to do with it? But that overarching question of owner occupancy, for example, that's really difficult. And that's why we need to make sure that we know the questions that you have so that we can answer them for you. And so if you have specific questions or specific things that you say, hey, well, what about deed restrictions, Chris brought up, what about that? That would be helpful information for us so that we can answer those questions for you and bring forward a recommendation.
Madam Chair, just one last comment I neglected to make, and that is relative to what you mentioned about the general plan. Your general plan is an aspirational statement of where the community wants to go over an extended period of time. It is not a statement of present condition. That's your zoning map. Okay? So don't think as you go through this that you have to just adopt your general plan as your zoning map. Generally what you do is you say, this is our zoning map. We hope to get to this place in the future. If you're willing to help us do that, whether it's owner occupancy or increased housing or the right kind of housing, we'll help open the way for you. We'll partner with you. So this becomes, in effect, an opportunity to move in the direction of your general plan, not by right immediately, but by partnering with the city to make that possible, because they're willing to help us achieve some of the goals that you have in mind.
The general plan, the FLUM, the future land use map, is not currently a zoning map. That is a current condition. I'm not sure how long that's going to be the case. Not only did the legislature want to make our general plans zoning maps, and we managed to push that back, right? But I've even heard talk about it, that our future land use map will become a zoning map. So I'm bracing for that. I would love it if the general plan is only forever aspirational. That would be great.
And speaking of aspirational, you can't be afraid to move in that direction when someone helps you to do it. I remember the days before I came to the city about what the Cairns district would look like when we implemented the full plan. And as partners have come along and helped us do that, we've embraced that, right? But the challenge with housing is that you cannot simultaneously increase the availability of the housing, and also keep everything the way it is. Something has to change if you're going to increase housing. And that's the challenge that you face as elected officials, because you will have constituents on both sides of that issue. So.
Right.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming up to the podium too. I know that was hard for you. All right, we've way overrun our general citizen comment time. I have one blue card, and we'll go ahead and call you down, Henry, because we've made you wait a long time. So Henry Butters, come on down. You have 3 minutes when your comment starts. Anyone else who would like to make general comments in the room? We have the blue cards in the back, and in a second we'll have Dustin tell our online audience how to do that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Sharkey, for getting back to me on that situation on the dog catchers. I feel like every dog catcher should have a body camera on them. We had a situation over at my house. A dog catcher got a little lippy to my wife and locked horns on me, and I looked at him. I said, "You're a public official. You don't need to yell at my wife. Yell at me." No public official should be yelling at anybody when they're in their passivity. I feel like Sandy should make that requirement for dog catchers. Even one of the supervisors, like, I would want one to protect me from situation like this. Another situation is a lot of cars are still parked right behind that fire station. If I go park my semi down there, how quick are they going to be down there to give me a ticket? Don't be biased. That's how I look at it. It says on our pink slip 48 hours. Why don't you go pink slip all them freaking cars down there and do your job and do it the right way? That's how I look at it. And so, you know, Monica, what's his name have not still got back to me over 2 weeks ago. Martin, 2 weeks now, on some questions I had for him. So, you know, but that's my concern. I really think they need to crack down on the parking down there. There's still so many cars down there with no license plates. That's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Dustin, do you want to tell our online audience how to participate?
Of course, thank you, Madam Chair. If you're joining us virtually this evening on Zoom and you'd like to comment on any city business, now's the time. Just go ahead and click the raise hand button on your screen. I'll call your name in the order in which you raised your hand, and you'll have 3 minutes. I'm not seeing any hands raised, Madam Chair.
Same. We'll close general citizen comment this evening and move on to our public hearing items. So council public hearing items this time, just like last week, are annexations, and I plan to handle it just like I did last week unless someone objects. Okay. So we'll take them one by one in order, and Brian McHouston, if you want to kick us off, that would be helpful. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everybody. We have a much shorter list this week where we have 4 annexations. 3 of them have been by consent, where the property owners saw the public notice signs for the other annexations as of, hey, I want to join in on this annexation process. I want to be part of Sandy and not part of Granite. Those are Alta 3, or Altavilla 3, Altavilla 4, and the Smith annexations. The G. Miller annexation was one that they signed a water letter a year ago, and so just decided to add them to the list as well. But we've got the list up here on the screen. So Altavilla 3 is located at 10184 South Altavilla Drive. They signed the consent on March 9th. Currently they're zoned R143 in the county, and we're proposing to zone them to R140A in Sandy. And the Planning Commission is forwarding a positive recommendation on this particular one.
Any questions for Brian, Council? I don't see anything. All right. Do you have anything else?
Did we open it for public, for the property
I haven't
owners to
yet.
speak?
Are you
Okay.
gonna?
I can keep going.
Okay, keep going because I'm just going to move through them like
Okay.
last time. Okay.
Altavilla 4 is located at 10274 and 10302 South Altavilla Drive, both under the same property owner's name. Again, zoned R143 in the county and proposed to be R140A here in Sandy. Planning Commission is forwarding a positive recommendation. The Smith annexation, which is 9519 South Hidden Pine Lane. They would be connected due to the other annexation, the Hidden Pine annexation, which is currently in the process. They're zoned R115 in the county. We would zone them R115 here in Sandy. Again, Planning Commission forwarded a positive recommendation. And the G. Miller is located at 10324 South Dimpledale Cove. Should be Dimpledale Drive, sorry. Property owner, they signed a water letter agreement back in June of 2024. Currently zoned R121 in the county. We would zone R120A here in Sandy City.
All right, same question. Any questions at all? Nope. All right. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing on these 4 annexations that are number 4, 5, 6, and 7 on our agenda. I will start with asking for property owners on each one of these in order. Is a property owner for the Altavilla 3 annexation available in the room or online and would like to speak to this item? All right, I see none. Next item is Altavilla 4 annexation. Is there a property owner in the room or online that would like to speak to this item? See none. Item number 6 is the Smith annexation. Is any property owner in the room or online and would like to speak to this annexation? All right, and then we have the G. Miller annexation. Is a property owner in the room or online wanting to speak to this annexation? Okay, and as last time, we'll move on to any other interested parties. I have no blue cards on this. Anyone in the room that would like to speak to any of these 4 annexations? And Dustin, if you'd like to invite the online audience.
Of course, Madam Chair. If you're joining us virtually and you'd like to comment on any of this evening's public hearing agenda items for the annexations, just go ahead and click the raise hand button on your screen now, and I'll call your name in the order in which you raised your hand, and you'll have 3 minutes. None, Madam Chair.
I see no interested parties, so I'm going to close the public hearing on these 4 annexations and bring it back to the council for action.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the Altavilla 3 annexation and it be zoned R140A.
Do you need any more detail, Dustin, or is that enough for you?
Madam Chair, one question I had is there interested in adopting them all at the same time?
Yeah. Yes?
If so, you could just make a motion to adopt Ordinance 26-36, Ordinance 26-37, Ordinance 26-38, and Ordinance 26-39.
Okay. I'll take my motion back because we didn't get a second. I'll motion that we approve Ordinance 26-36, 26-37, 26-38, and 26-39 with the zonings.
I'll second.
All right, a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Ms. Nickel,
Yes.
Ms. Hausman,
Yes.
Ms. Sharkey,
Yes.
Ms. Christensen,
Yes.
Mr. DeKaiser,
Yes.
Ms. Strout.
Yes.
Madam Chair, that motion carried 6-0.
Thank you. All right, Council, we have 2 items on the consent calendar. One is the acceptance of an ILA that will bring some funds to Sandy, and the second is another intent to annex. Do I have a motion to adopt the consent calendar?
So
Motion.
moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Okay, we are going to have an RDA meeting. So I will make a motion that we recess the city council meeting and convene a meeting of the Sandy City RDA. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Casey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just going to, I have the easy work tonight. I'm just going to turn the time over to Dan Nelson, if that's all right, and he'll walk you through this item on the agenda.
Okay. And council, this is an information item for discussion tonight, and it'll be on a voting calendar. I think we have it tentatively scheduled for next week for voting? Okay. Thank you, Dan.
Hi, good evening. Let's see. Do we have that graphic that was in the?
If you give us just a second, we can pull it up for you.
Okay.
Dan. Liz, would you mind pulling up the graphic?
Okay. So the Arbor building, we own it now. Operations going well. We've talked to all the tenants. They're getting all their systems set up to transfer rent directly to us. Now we're getting ready to move some of the city tenants into the building. And as you know, the RDA, it requires an RDA resolution before the city puts any city occupants in the building. So, we're coming before you to seek approval for 3 different departments right now to go into the Arbor building. And those would be Community Arts or the Arts Guild, and Parks and Rec Administration, and then Economic Development or the RDA. So I put a graphic that shows the layout of the different suites that are currently vacant, and kind of what we're thinking as far as the different suites, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you'd like.
Ms. Nichol.
I have a question. How many people from Parks and Rec?
I don't know that off the top of my head. Let's see.
Would be moving over? I don't.
If you give me a minute, I could count on my fingers, but we're probably talking somewhere between 12 to 15.
Okay. Is that the entire staff there?
Pardon?
Is that the entire staff?
No, it would be the administrative staff.
Okay.
Kind of the higher level.
Okay, cool. And 3 in RDA? 3 people in RDA, Dan?
I think that's right.
Yes.
And what was the other department?
Arts.
Oh, how many in the Arts Guild?
6.
Okay, thanks.
Ms. Hausman, go ahead.
Just a quick clarifying question. You said RDA yet to be determined, and you list the 3 possibles. 265 is showing currently as leased, but is that the one that is exiting? And so it will be a potential option come summer of 26?
Yeah, it's a better size suite than suite 270 for the RDA.
Right.
The thought is that we would be putting 270 out for lease and hope to find a private tenant. We only have about 18 months left on this term for suite 265. Okay. They have their space up for sublease and have indicated they'd love a buyout if it were offered. So, the thought is if we could find a tenant for suite 270, which would give us a longer term, then we'd switch those.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, just making sure I was tracking. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I had.
So, my concern with this plan is that it hasn't accommodated what I thought was the main driving need for adding more space, and that was accommodating the needs of the police department. So it appears to me, unless I'm missing something, that we haven't done in this scheme plan, we haven't done anything at all to free up space for the police to expand and have more breathing room. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think we determined that this is not good space for police.
We definitely did that. So what I'm suggesting is, I thought what we were going to be looking at was freeing up space in City Hall by moving a department or departments over here that would allow the police more space.
Yeah, none of the departments we're moving are freeing up space for police.
So for me, that would be a challenge. That'd be a hurdle. I would want to. I'm thinking that, in part because it's the largest one, that maybe it's not needed. Parks and Rec and Arts Guild. Okay, fine. I'm thinking maybe 270 could accommodate. I looked back at an older presentation that we had done going back. Suite 270 is 4,800 square feet. So I'm thinking that's pretty sizable to move a department or departments out of City Hall, leaving the police department room to expand within City Hall. That would be what I'd be looking for.
Yeah. Martin, do you want to address that?
As you're aware, part of the proposed budget for this year, we'll be looking at combining some departments, which may also free up some space. And so this is an ongoing discussion. We just wanted to respect the earlier discussions that we had with the RDA board. That's the direction that we're moving in, and we're open to feedback as we move forward.
Go ahead.
How many square feet is RDA right now, your space?
Let's see. I show them as about 1,000.
And what is the plan, or do we have one for what's going to go up there if we move you?
The current RDA space?
Yeah.
For right now, it was, we're holding it for the council staff. If the council staff if you move forward with the remodel, having a temporary place to relocate and still be able to function. Beyond that, we don't have a long-term plan. Tonight, we don't.
Dustin may get used to that corner office.
It's got some great views.
Can I make a comment on that, Madam Chair? Is that okay?
Yeah.
If we, once we move forward with the remodel, we'll have to hold council meetings in the multi-purpose room. That space is right next to the multi-purpose room, which is a really good temporary solution for us. So really open to that.
So for me too, and maybe some of these, I know we have the building, and so we want to start occupying it, and maybe we can do that. So the question for me, the most logical one, would be to use Suite 270, move public utilities there. I mean, I saw in the budget preview that there is a proposal to spend $1 million to build out offices in their operations building on 150th. Is that east? I don't know where that $1 million is coming from. So I don't know if that is short term, if we know where that's coming from, if they have the money. I don't know, but that would be a logical move, would be to move public utilities there. And that way all police needs to do is take the stairs and move upstairs. So, but for me, a solution that doesn't include that's where this whole conversation started, is a need for more room for police. And so far, we're not addressing that. So,
Councilwoman, it's a viable, that's the word I was looking for, viable option, and we appreciate the feedback. This first phase is just the first phase. And so we are going to potentially market some of these vacant spaces to see what the interest is. There is quite a bit of vacant office space in the area, so we're not sure the immediate response, but looking at moving part of public works, or public utilities, excuse me, is something that could be considered. But we're trying not to move people 2 or 3 times with a lot of things in play with the proposed budget. We're just coming forward with a proposal for today, then let that process move forward. There's still some improvements that need to be made to the existing spaces. Thankfully, it's literally paint and carpet and maybe a few tweaks here and there. Also, ordering furniture over there takes a long time. There's a long lead time on furniture, and we didn't want to do any of that without approval from the RDA at this point. And so that's why we're coming back. We do know this item is on a future agenda, taking all this feedback and information in, and we'll continue to move forward with discussions.
Any more feedback? I don't see any. All right, thank you.
All right.
We have minutes.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just minutes, looking for approval for minutes for RDA meeting February 10th and February 17th.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
That's
All
it.
right, it was as fast as that, okay. Okay, so, yeah, well, we can adjourn. I'll
Madam
make a
Chair,
motion-
yes, go back into the council meeting. Is that where you're headed?
Motion
Just
to
to- yeah,
adjourn the
yeah.
RDA
And reconvene.
and
city council.
reconvene city council.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Council, do we need a closed hearing or a closed meeting tonight? No. No one's asking for that. No one needs that. Okay. All right. Thank you. We will just go into standing reports then, starting with Dustin's council office director's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of items this evening, and I apologize, I'm going to be looking at my screen while I say this, but a reminder, Beautification Day is on April 25th. The Youth Council will be at the cemetery, and Chris asked me to just remind you, if you'd like to join, you're welcome. If there are any other questions about that day or how to participate, you can call Chris and she can help you get oriented, okay? Second item is based on the direction you gave us last week. We have we're executing the amended contract with Matrix for that expanded scope of our public utilities management study this week. They're getting started on it. We should have that all executed. We're hoping by the end of the week, and we're expecting about a 30-day turnaround on that. So we should get it pretty soon after the presentation of the tentative budget. Give you plenty of time to still make a decision, I believe. Outside of that, just a couple of notes on upcoming agenda items. Next week is looking like a pretty heavy agenda, so everybody be prepared for that. We do have the Youth Council graduation, Fire Department annual report presentation, the ADU discussion that James mentioned this evening, a couple of second readings from council members, including Councilmember Christensen's RV amendments, and Councilmember Nichols' public safety building GeoBond proposal. The CDBG annual action plan is also on next week's agenda, which is usually a pretty hefty item. And then also our colleagues from the MVP, you may remember that they had requested some amendments to their MOU some time ago. Tracy and I have been in discussions with them. The legislative session kind of got in the way. They put it on pause, but they started discussing it with us again a couple of weeks ago. We think we've come to a good recommendation that they'd like the council to consider next week. I'm going to try to follow up with each of you within the next couple of days to just kind of give you a heads up or some background on how those conversations went so that you're not surprised. And then, let's see here, the RDA item that we just discussed is also tentatively scheduled for vote next week. I don't think I did miss one thing. The other item that would be on the calendar is the possible appointment of Mr. Littlewood, who interviewed tonight. And I think that's the end of my report, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Something?
Oh, I apologize. One more thing that I forgot to mention. Just a reminder, the following week, the 28th, we have Carrie Nakamura from Nakamura Associates coming in to do a budget training right before the tentative budget. That should be really useful. We're thinking it'll be a 2 to 3 hour training. We are also going to have a closed session that evening after the training, just as a heads up to everybody. If you have questions about that, let me know, but it'll be character and competency closed session.
All right, council members, anyone have anything? Nope. Nope.
I just went to the South Valley Chamber of Commerce. I know a bunch of us did, and it was a really great event. So thank you to the administration and to Fire Station 31. I thought they did a really good job with their tour. People were excited about it. And also, are you doing historic committee or mine? Okay. for Historic Committee, they met this last week, and they are working on finalizing the contributing historical structures. So that is the last piece to update the city records, and then have the contractor that they've selected prepare the historic guidelines for us to go over and hopefully put some of them into code. So,
Ms. Stroud?
Yep, so chamber, and that's seeing 31 and showing that off. Station 31 is always fun, when people are able to see that first time. Historic Committee, the Youth Council, Justin, you got that one. Also, the America 250 up at the Sandy Library, the Youth Council was up there helping with some of that, and spoke with Sarah, who was running that, and she said, the first 10 minutes, they're like, oh, we have one person, and then 70 people came in to participate in that art activity. So she was very appreciative that she had a little bit of help from the Youth Council, and it seemed like it went really well up there. So kind of loving these America 250 things. The Youth Council will actually be up at the Rec Center on Thursday, so it'll be fun and see what it looks like a week later from last time I was up there with Brooke. Let's see, and the Youth Council, so graduation, Dustin, you got that. But the application window, it will be open for next year's Youth Council until the 15th. So if you know anybody that's interested, pass along that application. You can find that online through Youth Council or through the council page, through our Facebook, looking at everything there. We had, our field trip yesterday, so our annual East Sandy field trip, and we combined that with Brookwood Elementary. So City Hall was full with about 115 8 and 9-year-olds learning about city operations and getting a chance to kind of tour the area, that encompasses right here in the heart of our downtown, taking a look at our courts building, police, fire, doing an excellent job. So Nikki Wyman over in Public Utilities always does such a great job with water cycle and talking about the importance there. At the K-9 units, SROs, fire department, Station 31, loved it. And, and I always bring up a little story. We were walking out, and one of my students looked up at me, and we've been to Thanksgiving Points Museum and Natural Curiosity a couple of weeks ago. And he looked up at me and he goes, wow, Ms. Stroud, this was 3 times better than our previous at Thanksgiving Point. So, and that's, and to keep in mind, that is a STEM-themed museum that the kids are just go, go, go. They have ropes courses there. They've got this giant pond with fish that are this big. A water section, all sorts of things. But every single student, every single parent chaperone that we have, and I've had this year after year after year, they always say how much that they look forward to this field trip, and that is thank you to staff. Council staff, administration, for setting that up. Students are just in awe when they come in here, and they are filled in every chair. You've got people standing at the back, and they're here to learn about their city and what makes it operate, and the level of attention that they receive from city staff. They're just so appreciative of it. And I get emails from parents after, I get texts from parents. So thank you for making that successful, making it memorable. I'll have students for years to come, and they come back and they talk about their experience here at City Hall. Not the one that we're going down to Thanksgiving Point, not previous field trips that I've heard about, oh yeah, we went down, the Children's Museum, even JA City. This really is such a memorable opportunity for these young kids. So thank you, administration, thank you, council staff, for being able and being willing to provide such a wonderful opportunity. Let's see, I think there was some, and I was trying to put back into place, but I think our fourth annexation somewhere, and I'm trying to figure this out somewhere, I think that came with maybe some track money. It was tied to that. So if that was with administration, nice work on bringing that in, and getting that annexation in there. I was trying to find it, and I couldn't figure out where it was, so if I'm incorrect, but, I believe that came with some of that track funding, so good work on that, And I was trying to find, but yes, so, glad that came through, and that should be all of my updates. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sorry, I forgot something. Just, so you all know, and you're all invited, because I'm sure this is at the top of your list of things to do. But Copperview Elementary, who's a Title I school, and they're right on the border of Midvale and Sandy, but the majority of their students are from Sandy, from District 1. They're having their first ever fundraiser this Monday night from 5 to 7, and to try and support the kids and get some money for some field trips and different things to help the PTA out. And you're all invited. There's going to be a lovely band by Counselor Cadell. There aren't lawyers called Counselor. Counsel for the Council. His band will be playing, and there'll be food trucks. So if anyone's interested, at Copperview Elementary from 5 to 7 on the 20th.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not to outdo today's Be Nice to Your Attorney Day, but this week is International Dark Sky Week. So it's an opportunity to cherish our night sky, something we often take for granted. Their executive director did a April Fool's joke about orbital defense. They rolled out the first ever nighttime sunscreen. But it's actually not a joke, because there is a corporation seeking federal approval to direct sunlight back to the earth on demand at night. And that's just wild. Just an element of light pollution that's super concerning. Last week, during public comment, I reviewed the meeting. There was a gentleman on Altavilla who was concerned about streetlights being put in on his street. And, everyone knows this is really, really important to me. And so I'm going to start working on a dark sky ordinance, and it would be neat if there was some type of granite ordinance or an overlay, something like that, where we're talking about dark sky and lighting principles, best practices. I'd love to be a part of that, and like I said, I'll be working on that, a greater overlay zone that might affect other parts of the city. Switching gears, it's been 2 meetings since I've reported on the Jordan River Commission. But last meeting we adopted our budget, and as part of that, Sandy's dues went up $10. So I just wanted the council to know, since we're keeping tabs on that. Also, I learned that Sandy does not currently have a riparian ordinance, so that's something else that I will be looking to. We know from dedicating the wetland at Grandpa's Ponds how important all types of waterways are and things like that. So it'd be interesting to look into having more protections. Similarly, I also want to thank Tom. I don't know if we've talked about this in council, but we dedicated 2,500 acre feet of water. Did we talk about that? I saw an article about it. If we did and I missed it, sorry, but that is so amazing. It deserves a lot of recognition. Thank you and everyone else for the work that went into that. That is super huge. At the same time, if the nuke bros get their way, 2 of those developments could wipe out those savings. So we got to keep track of that. But yeah, since it is Dark Sky Week, I'd encourage everyone to try turning out your lights, see how it makes you feel. All week through Saturday, there's a scavenger hunt and other activities at Antelope Island from 8 to 10 p.m. And finally, the City Nature Challenge is April 24th through the 28th. And on Sunday, the 27th, there's a really cool event closest to us at the Jordan River Migratory Bird Reserve, which is a federally protected area not normally open to the public, where you can go out with your family and take part documenting local wildlife using an iNaturalist app, and there's competition and stuff like that. So it's a fun way to interact with our community. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks. Yes, tonight the consent calendar contained item number 8, the approving the interlocal agreement between Sandy City and Salt Lake County for track funding. That's $3 million we received from the county track fund for the community recreation center. The completion of that project would not have been possible without that, and the generous gift from the Miller Family Foundation as well. So they helped us close the gap and meet that final budget goal. So that is huge and a big congratulations to our park staff, everybody that worked on that, finance. This is the culmination of years of planning and work. So although it was on the consent calendar, it's a $3 million completion. This is a very, very big deal. Residents would be very proud to hear about that. Tonight we heard from the Central Wasatch Commission, and I just wanted to give a report about my work on the CWC and the momentum of the Central Wasatch Commission for passing federal legislation that will protect our canyons wilderness area. The CWC is a really unique organization. It is it's a voluntary organization. It is a convening organization that assembles municipalities, transportation services, and its focus is on wilderness protection in our canyons in the Central Wasatch. That means watershed protection for Sandy. It's great to have an organization beyond Sandy City, Salt Lake City, and Metro Water that is a coordinated organization that's focused on watershed protection. It's in the city's interest to be an active participant in the CWC, especially now. Say among the member organization, there's a growing sense of urgency for the passage of this CW-NCRA legislation, and you can find a lot of detail about its history, the history of the Mountain Accord, the goals of the federal legislation on the Central Wasatch Commission website. It's a very comprehensive dashboard if you haven't visited it. It's a great way to orientate about environmental preservation that's happening in the canyons. Protecting the wilderness area, management of natural resources, especially environmentally sensitive natural resource areas and watersheds, and facilitating year-round outdoor recreation and transportation in a combined strategy. So it's very important legislation. Salt Lake City and all the partner cities are very committed to passing the CW-NCRA, and it's very important and very aligned with Sandy's watershed interests. Thank you to all the families that turned out to the library for the America 250 Sandy Community Art Contest. Saturday's gathering with partnership from the Salt Lake County Library for Community Arts Days was well attended with more than 100 people participating. So I hope all of you have had a chance to submit an artistic rendering of America 250 or Sandy 250. You still have until May 16th to do so. As others have mentioned, the very successful chamber luncheon at Fire Station 31 behind the boots, the tour, the business leaders were so interested to hear about what Sandy's doing to promote and maintain our infrastructure. It's so important to our business community that we have that readiness, the emergency preparedness, the response, and the resources at the ready. So it was standing room only in the new training room, which was a beautiful area for the business community to gather. And thank you to our Salt Lake County Chamber partners for hosting that luncheon. Brookwood Elementary and East Sandy Elementary students the volume was cranked up at City Hall when the school buses arrived yesterday. It was a really exciting day and certainly a highlight of the year for Sandy administration to showcase the canines, the fire trucks, the police vehicles, and even some visiting animals that excited the children. More than 120 students participated, along with about 50 chaperones, parents, and teachers. So thank you, Councilmember Stroud. Thank you to your schools, to your school district for making that visit possible. It's great for the kids, but it's even better for us to have a chance to connect with those citizens and future leaders of the city. Yesterday we met at the Sandy Fire Station 31 for donations to be sent to Zacatecas, Mexico. Through the coordination with Sandy Fire Department, Salt Lake City Fire Department, and West Jordan, they sent decommissioned safety equipment that has outlived its useful life and certification for our departments, but could save lives in central Mexico. Former council member Dennis Tinney helped coordinate the collection and the transport of those resources. So thank you to Dennis Tinney, thank you to the fire departments, thanks to Chief McConaughey for your leadership and coordinating this multi-agency donation. And then finally, last Friday, had the pleasure of attending the Kindness Summit. The Semnani Foundation hosts the Kindness Summit each year, and Sandy City was recognized for achieving a certain status, and I want to invite Susan Wood up to explain what we received, and along with First Lady Abby Cox, we were presented something very special.
This is something we've all earned. It's a feather in the cap of Sandy City. This is our certification that says we are an official city of kindness. You may remember this all started with a joint proclamation with the council and the mayor several months ago, in which we decided to pursue becoming a certified kindness city. Then we brought out the kindness tree for Light Up the Cairns, and children from throughout the city were able to put messages of how they intend to be kind, as well as grown-ups. It was just a fun holiday type message for everyone to think about and send. We also put up flags at our city parks and fire stations. You've seen them, I'm sure. One Kind Act today, it's the Sandy Way. And we started circulating coins. They're called kindness coins. And I believe that Mr. Fratto received one of those coins. I'm just wondering, did you ever give it away?
I actually did.
Oh my goodness, that's great. What we're supposed to do is take the coins, and when we see acts of kindness, we pass the coin along. So it's always a pay it forward kind of thing to acknowledge folks who are going the extra mile and just doing something nice for someone else. So I am super proud as a member, a resident of Sandy City and an employee of Sandy City to say that we have earned our official kindness certification. So congratulations to everyone. And thank you for your participation on that. Let's let it continue.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan, for your diligence in bringing this program to Sandy. And kindness isn't just for lawyers anymore. It's for everyone. One Kind Act a day. If you go to the One Kind Act a Day website, you can learn, you can request the kindness coins. They have a QR code. And so each coin can actually be tracked through acts of kindness. So you can scan the QR code on each coin, put in a little summary of the kind act that you saw as you gave it away or as you received it, and then pass it on. But it's just the flags, the kindness certification, it's a good reminder that kindness is never out of fashion. It doesn't cost anything to be kind, and it certainly reflects the values of Sandy. So very proud to be a kindness city and also to partner with such an outstanding foundation. That's it. Thank you.
CAO report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just two things. This coming Thursday at 10 a.m., we're doing an emergency communication test. It will go citywide, so you should be receiving texts or emails or phone calls. It will, and our public will also, it will announce up front that it's a test. That will lead to some discussions later on at 10:30 by the policy group on some of the things that the departments are doing this week to prepare for emergency situations. And then Siegel Lily Gardens officially opens tomorrow to the public. So thank you.
One more quick thing. We welcome this Kenyon School District Life Skills Academy. Thank you, Chris Edwards, for bringing the students to the visit with the mayor's office and staff. And we had a nice sit-down visit with 13 students of different abilities, adults learning life skills, and talked about emotional resilience, sticking with something even when it's hard, how to respond when things don't go their way. They had good advice for me. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to meet with these outstanding students.
Ben, come on down.
Thank you. Well, we're excited that the contract with the county is signed so we can start getting reimbursements for that amount too. That will really help as we move along with this process, and that we're on budget and on track to finish where we started the application process. So that's good. And we're also excited to host the Youth City Council this coming Thursday at 5:30 on site. Some of the superintendents of the Layton will stick around and kind of walk us through. It'll kind of be nice because all the workers will be home and we'll be able to see what's going on without all the chaos. So a little bit of an update. The plumbers have, well, first of all, the masons continue to work on the locker room walls. And then the plumbers follow right behind them, installing water and drain lines in those CMU walls. The electricians continue to install conduit over the basketball courts. The concrete crews continue to form the east exterior wall and the second level deck. And you hear sometimes they talk. The reports we get are construction language, but that second layer deck is actually the walking track. So we were able to get up there this past week and actually see the formation of the walking track, which is really cool. So that has been formed, and then the still work is continued to complete, working on completing that entire track, and then they'll continue to pour that in the next couple of weeks. So that's the update. Any questions so far?
I don't see any. Thank you, Ben. All right, that's the end of our agenda. I'll make the motion to adjourn. All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, good night, everyone. Thank you. And thank you to the lawyers tonight. It's special recognition.